Hello. How's everybody?
Good.
Yeah. The warm room doesn't help.
So,
Ready?
yeah. So we did have jigsaw stuff. It was just different questions about
Oh.
text.
Oops.
Wait, what?
We did have
We all
jigsaw?
had different questions, I
Oh.
think.
I'll be kind of good, just kind of able to
Did we?
answer them on the...
No.
Or were they the same?
We all have the same.
Had the same questions?
Pretty sure it was
Yeah.
the same. Just,
According to Tunnel, what's wrong with history books?
Okay.
What makes for quality historical fiction? And
I-
how does Esperanza meet these criteria?
Alright.
Right?
yeah, that's what I read.
Okay.
Mhm.
I wrote person A on my thing, so I thought I
Oh.
had an assigned
Mm-mm.
thing.
No worries.
Anyway.
It's just still good to see
We
who
can
you are in a group, I guess.
Okay, so let's start with the first question. So according to Tunnel, what's wrong with history books?
They're not relatable.
Not relatable at all, no. Like,
At least not for... Well, I don't find them relatable when I'm an adult, but...
yeah, it's sad. It's funny that, like, we don't find them relatable, and yet we're, like, it always seems like history books focus on, like, Europeans and their great accomplishments and everything, and, like, that, like, their accomplishments are great, but they ignore a lot of the other accomplishments of other groups of people, so.
Yeah, it really made me mad that like the Holocaust only had like 80 words.
Seriously?
I was like reading
Yeah.
when he was writing, he's like, did you guys know like big events or have like a little paragraph when it takes so much more to like explain what happened?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Made me really mad.
I had a whole class in high school on like World War II Holocaust. Like,
Yeah, it's a
there's no
huge-
way that a history
80
book.
words. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's like,
I don't know.
it's funny how much, like, this, with the example of the Holocaust, like, yeah, you get your little lesson in school and everything, but then I've been learning more and more about, like, that other groups are also affected by, like, were also put in concentration camps and just
Mhm.
all of these things about it, and then they're actually making a movie soon about, I think it's a group of 4 friends who were Nazis in Germany during that time. And it's like from their perspective. So yeah, it's just like history books just don't include enough of the story. We just kind of get this one-sided idea of like, okay, good guys, bad guys. This happened. Little test on it, then you're done. Forget it. Don't relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I know that they only have a certain amount of pages, but I don't know. I just feel like they don't really go into depth enough.
Mhm. I liked what Tunnel says. I don't think it was from there or in her words, because I think it was in quotes in her book. But it's like talking about how it separates the readers from the story of ourselves.
Yeah.
So like,
They kind of make
because they can't see themselves in it, it's hard to see how it had, like, the past has shaped the world that we are living in.
yeah, it kind of like becomes it's his story, not our story.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's always kind of the way I saw it.
Yeah.
Like
No, very one-sided.
yeah,
Like only like one perspective. Like this is how it happened.
Yeah.
yeah,
But it's like something that happened for so long can't be explained in 80 words. Like it just can't.
it almost just makes it more like we were saying about being relatable. Just makes it seem more fictional. Like
Yeah.
this happened, good guys win, the end.
Mhm.
And like when really there's so much and it was ongoing. So many people were involved. So
It really made me think about, like, a lot of people say this, but how true it actually is that history textbooks really are written from, like, a white, male,
Oh yeah.
middle-aged person's perspective.
yeah,
And definitely makes it harder for children to, like, relate to that and, like, see themselves as, I don't know, or their life having to do with anything with.
yeah, seeing
Those
themselves as
historical.
part of history. Yeah. Like, I just like remember in elementary school we did a whole unit on the explorers of the world, you know, and like with like Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and all that. And I just always remembered they're just all a bunch of white European guys.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I kind of wish it could have been, you know, a woman explorer or like an African American explorer. You know, it's just like it didn't really feel.
Which they more than likely were. We
Yeah.
just don't know because it's not
Yeah.
written.
Yeah, like recently I saw this thing about like this, like it was a statue of this pirate, and it was this woman pirate who did all these crazy amazing things, and like we see that now, we're just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I wish I could have learned about it back then.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I feel like that's the kind of stuff we can also put in the history books and give them a little paragraph, you know. Sorry, I'm really passionate about history. I like it.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
I just like remember being in like history class and having to carry around that book
It's thick
and being like, why do I even care?
Yeah.
Who are these people? Why do I have to do this?
And then for tests or whatever, when you were assessed,
memorizing.
it's like, memorize it, take the test, forget it.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly. Because like if you can't relate to it, why remember it?
Oh, I just didn't care.
It's
at all.
harder to remember.
Yeah, I think that's better put, yeah. Oh man.
Okay, we can do our second question.
Yeah.
We're rolling through this though.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, we've only been going for 6 minutes.
So wait, we already talked about that. What makes for quality historical fiction? Some of the things that he was like talking about was how historical fiction should be judged the same way as any other piece of fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like that, kind of like making it like connect to our other readings, and so I enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, did you guys see anything else?
I liked that he was talking. I liked everything that he was saying. I was reading this last night. Whoa, this makes so much sense. But like that history should not be sugar-coated.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like
I liked that one a lot.
yeah, I mean, in like to make it going back to the thing about being relatable, like we can all relate to struggle and having to overcome challenges. So if we sugarcoat history and it's like everything was just okay, then it's like it's not very relatable. But also, I think kind of is almost disrespectful to the people who were there if you sugarcoat it too much. And then it's just like unrealistic and kids can tell. Like
He was saying how it was like, you just made up this story, right? Like, it's just
Yeah.
a story. It's like, no, this is real.
yeah.
Yeah, and then if you're sugarcoating it, you're not actually you're letting your students know what happened. They're
Yeah.
just getting this,
Little fantasy story.
yeah, it's not the actual truth of what occurred.
Yeah, I feel like that's the big word is truth. It's like this is historical, so it's like it has to be a balance between realistic and fictional.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Tanel was putting it well when he was like having a fictional story but set in a real time. And that part when he was talking about like that the accuracy is required. Like, okay, I have to admit, I cringed when they said Johnny Tremaine. I hated that book.
I don't think I've read it.
Oh, I read it in 5th grade and I hated it. It was so long and boring and I didn't relate to it at all. Hey, there you go. And but like now I look back and it was a good historical fiction book and like it was a good story, but I just wasn't into it. But yeah, like when he was talking to Paul Revere, it has to make sense that Paul Revere would actually say these things.
Yeah.
I was laughing at the part where it's like, the surprise appearance by George Washington, making a little cameo appearance. But yeah, that was just making a lot of sense. Like, that has to be real and accurate and not sugar-coated, because those kind of all go together, because real history is definitely not sugar-coated. It's not a Disney film, it's real life. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot.
Oh, you're fine. You don't need to apologize for that.
I really liked how he talked about the authors that are writing the historical fiction and whatever time period that they're writing about, they should bring it to life.
Yeah.
So like make it feel like the student as they're reading, they can feel like they're actually there. They can actually, I don't know, feel the emotions or just the experiences that those characters are going through.
Yeah. Like, I think that also kind of goes along, like, being able to imagine yourself there goes along with the other point, that it's revealed through the eyes of a young protagonist. I feel
Yeah.
like that really helps a student, really anybody, feel like they were there, because no matter what, you'll remember when you were a kid, so you can kind of put yourself there.
You compare your life to what their life is like when they're
Yeah.
which is why Esperanza was a good book.
Oh, it was.
Like even if you hadn't like experienced that like type of like changing so drastically from being like very wealthy to very poor or like moving across country, I know you can still like relate to the fact that she's having like she's struggling to like understand what it's like to be something else.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
seeing from someone else's perspective, like the little girl on the train, her remembering that, and then using that to be kind to another
Mhm.
peasant. But
Yeah.
yeah, just curious. Did you guys ever read the American Girl books?
Yeah.
'Cause I was just
I have one.
yeah.
The American Girl Live Samantha.
Oh, I love Samantha.
She's worth like so much money now. I don't want to sell her though.
Oh. But I was just thinking, like, looking back and analyzing some of the historical fictions I've read before, and like, I was trying to think, like, okay, were the American Girl doll books good historical fiction? I feel like they were, but I feel like I almost want to reread them just to see.
To go back.
Yeah, kind of from more teacher perspective.
Yeah. I don't remember Samantha's story.
So I know that she stayed wealthy throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, her outfit is wealthy.
Yeah,
Like it's like a private schoolgirl like outfit.
yeah, but I think she like befriends a servant girl who and like teaches her to read or something like that, and I think they end up adopting her. But
Oh.
anyway, back to the reading we actually did. Sorry,
Yeah.
little side tangent, but.
She
So
kind
what do you guys think made Esperanza a good historical fiction book?
Well, we talked about how nothing was really sugar coated, but there wasn't anything too like
Yeah, it's not like a
Not
show
too
of her father
inappropriate.
being killed, like,
yeah, but it's like, oh, she had to travel like in the cart with her mom in a really small space. Like that would have sucked, but it's not
Mm.
like horrific for children to like
Yeah.
understand.
The living situations, they didn't describe them or sugarcoat them. Like they compared,
They're
like
small and dirty and
and they even talked about how other people were living in even worse conditions,
Mm.
their working conditions. Just I don't know.
yeah, I mean,
I think the author had intended not to be like too inappropriate so that it could reach kids.
yeah, so the author knew their audience.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like describing the living conditions as being like just dirty and small and cramped instead of like there were bugs everywhere and it smelled like this. You know, it's like they can give the idea, but then also keep it light-ish for kids. You know, so they're not like ew.
Not too
that's-
that they don't understand what's
Yeah.
happening.
making it relatable again. Yeah.
I think like I don't know if you would call it the worst thing, but like the most emotional or I don't know how to explain it.
Mhm.
But like when he talks about like the families that were separated when some
Yeah.
were taken and like
Mhm.
sent back to Mexico, and then how some people, even if they were citizens, were sent back to Mexico, and like,
Yeah. I think. Yeah, like that.
He said it right. I think he phrased it really well.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't like go into too much detail, but it was enough that to be like, oh, that's really sad.
Yeah, I think it was important that like Esperanza herself didn't like experience everything, that every kind of struggle, because then it wouldn't have been realistic and relatable. Like the kid would have been reading like, oh man, no one goes through that much, and then they wouldn't believe it. But she saw a lot of the struggle, and so kids can relate to that. Like, oh, okay, I've seen struggles in my life too, and I've seen other people struggling and have learned from that. So it wasn't so that she was experiencing every kind of hardship and making it unrealistic, but it was still brought up in a way that you could get the idea, but it was still realistic.
Yeah.
So I feel like Tanel did a good job of just kind of covering a lot of the base, like kind of the main ideas of historical fiction, what makes it good, like this kind of every kind of category. Do you think there's any other categories that makes historical fiction good?
I found that the characters were really relatable,
Mm.
just in their personalities, in the lives that they were leading, like, I don't know, just the events that happened, like, a lot of things were very relatable.
Yeah.
Whether it was just like, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, please keep going.
Like, I don't know, just like their relationship with one another, or just in general. Like, I don't, I guess I'm lost now.
no, I see where you're going though. Marta's character was interesting.
Who?
Marta, the
Mm.
because it was bringing in another perspective of like, yeah, she's in a similar boat to Esperanza, but she's from America and she's in this group that wants equality and more wages and everything, but at the same time she's threatening Esperanza's new way of life.
Yeah.
So I feel like she was a good kind of antagonist in a way, because like she was realistic. She wanted what was best, but that opposed what Esperanza was striving for. It's like, and then of course she was like a little jerk to Esperanza every once in a while too, so that made it better. But it was like a realistic kid villain, but also a realistic real life antagonist kind of person who isn't evil and isn't just out to get her, but is also like, yeah, just wants something different.
Yeah, I agree.
Other than analyzing antagonists, they're like one of my favorite characters. So I feel like the older you get, the less evil villains become. So I could get into a whole other tangent about that, but.
Any like gut reactions you guys had with Esperanza Rising? I've read this book before, and I reread it again, and it was just like kind of I took it a different way the second time.
Oh yeah, what'd you get out of it this time?
I just kind of like understood Esperanza a bit more than I did when I read it in like 7th grade. In 7th grade, we had to do like those, like every chapter we had to stop and then draw a picture of what was happening. And we had like a storyline, and it was great, but I just felt like it was really hard to relate with her at 7th grade just because I hadn't really like experienced the world yet.
Yeah.
Or like understand history because of all those history books that I'm not reading.
Yeah.
So, I liked it.
I thought that was good that it was describing like parts of the Mexican Revolution.